Okay, welcome back after that short break. On to session 2 of bots. We've got Robert and James again from Black Marble. Hopefully you caught that first session. So what are we going to cover in this second session then?
So we're going to actually be covering actually how to make the bots actually do something. So we actually we talked about the framework, we talked about the why and what you could do.
Yep.
But let's actually start doing something with bots themselves and how to do that.
Okay.
So we'll be talking about actually how to build some control flow.
Yep.
More importantly, actually talk about things like Lewis and actually how you do language understanding.
Okay. Yep.
What the components are, and that'll be it. There's quite a lot in there.
Yeah, I think you've got a few demos in there. Have you? Or you got a demo, one demo in there?
Yeah,
okay,
we've just got one demo here. We're really introducing Lewis as a standalone service.
Okay.
And we're kind of just getting the audience aware of the different terminology, the Lewis portal, what it can do by itself.
Yeah.
And then in the next session, we'll look at how we can use that to build intelligence into our bots.
Fantastic. Okay.
So the next session is going to be pretty much demo heavy with Lewis and then sentiment analysis.
We're just going building it up, aren't we?
Yeah.
That's fine. That's good. Okay.
So just a quick recap. I'll do this nice and fast. So we've got the bot framework, which is a full set of tools hosted on the PaaS solution of choice, Azure being a very nice one to choose.
Yeah.
And then we've got registration and configuration as shown. Now again, one of the things which we maybe didn't see as clearly as we could is that the registration is really about connecting to the different channels, and that's going to come up very clearly in the next few minutes. The channels are key.
Yeah, I think let's have a good chat around that, because there's quite a lot of choices there, aren't there, in terms of the number of different channels you can configure for. Yeah. Okay.
So in detail, again, this is all be available, so we're going to skip through this super quick. This is available in notes at the end of this. Visual Studio, if you're using C# or the development environment of your choice.
Yep.
Would strongly recommend using the emulator to get it working locally for debugging purposes.
Yep.
And then you register with the bot framework on dev.botframework.com, and then find somewhere to host the application. And again, for some reason, we're choosing Azure because it's a great hosting service. And that's it. You're pretty much ready to go at that point.
Okay.
There are other services which you can attach to and use, but we'll be covering those one by one a bit later on.
Okay, perfect.
So how do we do it? This is just, again, a summary of what we said before. Register, develop in Visual Studio, or again, it's like in code, if you want to do the Node.js version. Configure all the connectivity. Again, you only have to remember to copy those 3 values out from the bot framework registration page, and then reuse as you need to, and then publish to, again, the service provider you're using. Once you come into testing on a real channel, now, this is actually really important, we didn't cover this earlier. So while Skype, we're going to be using Skype for this.
Okay.
To use Skype, you fill in a simple form to get a key from Skype to allow you to attach in.
Yep.
But here's the important part. That key can take between 30 seconds and a day to turn up, depending on email and time and a whole pile of other stuff. I would actually recommend, if you actually saw you configured at the start for 2, one was web chat and Skype.
Yep.
For testing purposes, I would actually normally use web chat.
Okay, so you'd use web chat, you can use the local emulator that we covered, and then if you do plan to use Skype, then just bear that in mind that you might have to wait a little bit of time for that. That's fine.
Sorry, I think the key thing is if you're using the emulator to test locally,
you
can have quite a good level of confidence that when you deploy it out it'll work. So in theory, it's just a case of exposing it to different channels.
Okay.
But it's not just Skype. The other channels are the same. So whichever channels you choose, what you're going to find is you've got to get some sort of dev account or key or something like that, and that. Not just Skype, but the rest of them will take time. And if you're suddenly charging in, trying to get I want to do a bot now, and then find, you're stalled on getting a key from Facebook or somebody, you might get a bit upset. So the web chat, it's there, it works straight away.
Makes sense. Good advice. That's good advice.
That's all it was really about.
Great advice. Okay.
So let's have a quick look at, say, the architecture.
Yep.
In effect, we've got in the center, we haven't really talked about these are the bot connectors. The bot connector does all of your message routing, your connection to external sources. Remember, effectively, you're building a logic block which needs to connect to everything else.
Yeah.
And the bot connector is all built for you. There's nothing you need to do.
Yeah.
You just select which connectors to use. You've got your bot logic, which sits on top of the SDK, and we've actually marked that it can then talk to things like Lewis. The reason we did this is some people I spoke to thought that you connected to Lewis through bot connectors.
Yeah.
So your bot logic can connect to any other services you like,
yeah.
whether that's internal line of business, whether it's like the example we gave before, routing information. So you maybe connected some Bing services to try and get point-to-point routing or traffic information. All of that's done in your service.
Yeah.
So you're calling out to these extra things, adding value, or you're pulling in data from that, and actually you say this connector is managing that session state. So can you explain a little bit more about that? Or do you talk about that? About managing that session state, within the conversations?
So the idea is every discussion that you have with the bot is really a discussion.
Yeah.
So over time, obviously, the state of that discussion is going to change.
Yeah.
And that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about the state of the conversation and how that's persisted.
Okay.
And then, when we continue that discussion, it's rehydrated and made available, and we can continue that discussion.
So you're not resetting it every time you come back into the bot. Okay, that's good.
There's an important thing there. I would say that a lot of bot developers only concentrate on the last statement that was shipped from the user.
Right.
And you've actually got an entire conversation, which you remember earlier on we talked about context. Context is king with bots.
Yeah.
And if the user said previously they're interested in location, London, and when they're asking for restaurants, you might say, oh, I'm not sure. Do you mean London? They say yes, and off they go.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you don't look through the history, you're not going to get the true value of what a bot's about to deliver you.
That's good. That's a good example. I like it. Yeah.
And then we have what is actually really quite a lovely piece, and which makes pretty much the whole of the bot framework worthwhile, is the channels. So the fact that you've got a whole pile of set channels already built, more channels will come online over time, and the important thing is you don't care. You've built your bot logic, the connector framework does all that for you, and as the gerbil-tastic channel comes online, it appears in the directory. You just say we connect to that.
So you just click on it, configure it as you mentioned before, and you're there. Same code. No further work from that perspective, and that's powerful.
And that's the thing, you've got reuse across a whole variety of different services.
Yeah.
We've got Slack, SMS, all sorts of interesting things there. And the amount of effort you put in genuinely is minimal.
It's trivial. I mean, it takes literally, if I want to expose my bot over Facebook Messenger, which isn't in this diagram, but it's another channel that's available. It's it's 5 minutes configuration.
Okay.
And the configuration is really getting an application key from Facebook and getting that information, and then
that takes longer than the configuration.
It does, exactly. Yeah, the configuration's trivial.
And what happens? I noticed there that all of those are kind of messaging apps. Okay, or most of them, I think, except for the web. What happens if I've got an existing website? I don't want it to look like a particular chat. What can I use there?
So you've got several choices. One, you could actually embed web chat.
Okay.
If you wanted to.
Yeah.
Or you've actually got a direct line.
Okay. So what? REST? Just a simple.
Yeah. So the direct line is literally exposed over a REST interface. Mm-hmm. So you can use Angular or whatever web framework you want. You're comfortable with. And you can consume and talk to bots and get responses from bots using that API. It's fully security managed. You can revoke access just like you can any other channel.
So you've got the power of the bot framework, but kind of embedded naturally within the look of your website, for example.
Exactly. Yeah.
The abstraction the bot framework gives you is just stunning. Again, I'm a developer, so I love developers. But developers are lazy. And this is a proper write once, use everywhere.
It is.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay.
So,
I like that. I like that diagram. I think it's a good overview.
Took forever. And we have, there we go. Technology. Who needs technology? So what components have we got? The bot applications we said contains your logic. It's not coupled to the channel. And it's implemented in dialogues and form flows. We're going to come to those in just a minute.
Okay.
But this is actually how you manage the conversation with the user.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think that second point is really crucial. It's not, you're providing the behavior of the bot, but you're not really thinking about how the bot is going to communicate with the end user. you know, what the technology is.
Yeah.
You're not thinking about Facebook Messenger, for example. You're not thinking about Twitter. You're not thinking about, you know, Slack. You're just thinking about what your bot needs to do.
Okay.
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 And the last part, it's a web API, and if you can write web APIs, you're pretty much sorted.
You're done. Okay. Yeah.
That's it. That's a
So
bot
it's-
application.
It's a great set of tools, a framework, isn't it? There. Okay. Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
I mean, I think whoever came up with this just went, let's just make this simple and fast, and they've just done a stunning job,
Fantastic.
which is nice. So, as we said, we've got a set of bot channels. You can produce your own. The chances are, I don't think most people will. I think this is really for, you know, so there's going to be a set of messenger ones. There are going to be edge cases where you want to produce one, but in most cases, you're going to just produce your bot logic. It's going to do the work,
Yep.
and then you configure which bot channels you're available on.
Yeah.
And in lots of cases, people are going to say yes. And then you've got sort of hashtags and that sort of thing to help identify your bots and all that sort of stuff. And then if you want to, we've actually got direct line
A
channels.
huge amounts of flexibility there. I mean,
Yeah.
to configure where you want to be, and they say as your priorities change as a business or, you know, as a developer, and you think actually, you know, a certain channel is seeing far more growth, you can think, well, actually, I'll just move on to that one now as well
Exactly.
and support that and see how it goes. And actually, you could probably use them as well for a little bit of kind of A/B testing as well, or maybe try something out on one
Yeah.
channel. And you can do all kinds of stuff with
And
it.
it almost gives you a level of future proofing as well, because, you know, once your bot's there, you can expose it,
Yeah,
you know, to services that don't exist yet,
Yeah.
because they'll come in future.
they will come. Yeah, yeah.
So you probably gathered we like channels a lot.
I don't blame you. I think it's good.
So again, we showed you before, registration's very quick, defines the bottleneck capabilities. Unlike the demos we've given you, do spend some time filling the details because it's going to appear in the bot directory. You actually want to make sure that, and I'll use a marketing term, so I apologise now, you want to make sure it's compelling. You actually want the description, you want people to pick up your bot and use it.
Yeah.
And I feel dirty for using a marketing term, but that's fine. And the portal itself gives you a good level of management as well. We'll sort of show you some of those bits a bit later on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there you go. This is the Butty bot fully formed up.
So that's out on what, 5 channels there, isn't it? I think
It is,
to it?
yes.
Yeah.
You can use Slack to order your Butty if you're head deep in development and you don't want to move away from your computer.
Sure.
Yeah.
So how do you handle things like SMS there? Because, you know, I mean, some of those channels are a little bit richer, aren't they, in terms of...
They are, and with ButtyBot we went for, you know, a sort of a lowest common denominator.
Okay.
So, you know, we're not really going for a rich visual experience.
Right.
We're just giving the capability to someone to order a Butty.
Okay.
But if we were, you know, targeting Skyscanner, for example, it's quite a specific application, and
Yeah.
obviously you're targeting it to a specific audience.
Yeah.
So I
And it
think
needs to
in
be
that,
rich as well.
exactly, in that instance, you're going to want it to be graphical
Yeah.
and, you know, almost channel specific, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I have to say, I mean, I'm a big fan of Twilio. I think they do a lovely job. The fact that, there you go, there's the number for text and it's all just sorted.
It is, yeah.
And it's just ready to go.
Okay.
It's very fast, very easy. And again, this is the depressingly good bit about this whole thing. It's just really straightforward.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, just coming back to SMS, we can all, you know, we're driving into work, or someone else is driving.
Yeah. You're on
We
the
can
passenger seat. Yeah.
We can send an SMS to ButtyBot, and it'll have the Butty waiting for us when we get there.
I tell you, I could go viral after this.
Life's hard. Life's hard. Not really. So we actually have a channel emulator, so we can actually emulate a channel.
Yep.
I know there's a lot more to say about that
Nope.
one, to be fair. That's a really
You've seen it.
Yeah, that's what we showed in the first session, wasn't it? So yeah, that's fine.
Quite
yeah.
easy to use.
Yeah.
There's a screenshot.
Yeah.
But again, but it does have this strange thing where you have to type the password in once.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And again, because normally if you were building a channel, you actually have to have permission to connect in to the service to actually make it work. And it is a bit strange having everything just shown. There's something odd about it.
It's not very suited for demos, is it?
Not really, no. And again, all passwords will be changed straight into the service.
What's quite I noticed there as well. You can select the conversation, the user ID as well. So you can you can switch between different users,
Yeah.
and you can start to emulate that as
That's
well.
a really
So it's
good point.
quite rich.
You know, because not all bots are dealing with one
Yeah,
person,
exactly,
obviously.
exactly. You can have multiple bots, multiple people in that conversation.
Yeah. So yeah, you can, you know, the thing you can see there, excuse me, the conversation ID, you can change that, and you can, you know, start a new conversation.
Yep.
All the while, the other conversations will continue to be, you know, ongoing. So
Okay.
quite nice.
And again, it does say that when you're actually doing this, be aware that you could, as we said, have 40,000 users at once. So it's not being careful. All the structures there built for you. It's all ready to go, but it's not a single user conversation.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the bot directory, fairly straightforward. It's a marketplace for bots. It says what it does on the tip. It's just very straightforward.
It is.
Again, the commentary I made earlier, I think in general, a lot of users won't go there because it'll actually be pre-configured for them, and the
Okay.
bots will be there for them.
Yeah.
End users, in the case of, if you're something like Skype, you're going to connect effectively to a Skype user.
Yes.
So you wouldn't look at the directory because it would just be published out.
Okay.
So it'll depend on the platform you're delivering to and how you use it. But the bot directory is useful for finding if effectively you're an organisation want to implement the bots. Is my feeling.
It's your
about it.
feeling where it's going.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Getting early days around that, isn't it? I suppose.
is.
But I think the end users, it should just be ubiquitous.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's
I would
Yeah.
agree with that.
Okay. Yeah.
So there's quite a few nice jolly bots on offer.
Yeah. Various selection of
Skyscanner we've already shown. Don't think we've shown any of the rest of them actually.
Well, we've shown stuff,
Oh,
up,
stuff,
haven't we?
yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, there's some fun ones there, like you can play Uno, for example.
So it's worth the viewers going in there, go to
Yeah,
dev.botframework.com.
absolutely.
I think it's at the top, isn't it? The directory. Go in there and you can install it into Skype or whichever channel
Yeah.
it's configured for.
And just
have a
get a
play around
feel
with
for
them.
what
Yeah.
these actually feel like when you're using them.
Because there's some nice
Definitely.
examples in there of different ways of interacting. I
Yeah,
think.
and that's a
yeah.
really good point. You know,
Yeah.
all these bots use a different kind of mechanism for engaging. You
Yeah.
know, some of them are kind of conversation driven.
Yeah.
Others are, you know, almost menu driven.
Yeah.
And it's really just kind of getting
I-
awareness of all
You
those.
work out what works for you, and then you
Exactly.
can decide for your particular scenario what.
Yeah, I think the way I describe it is some of them are very sort of state driven,
Yes.
and I would say my personal view is they don't work quite so well.
Okay.
They feel a lot more mechanical,
Right. Okay.
whereas the conversation driven ones feel a lot more natural.
Okay.
And again-
For me, it depends on the scenario. I suppose.
You're
you know,
absolutely right.
Yeah. You know, it depends what the task is. You know, and sometimes a kind of basic keyword-driven interface might be the way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I said it's down to scenario and the user base.
Absolutely.
And I said in general, if it's a public user base,
Yeah.
conversation is going to win.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a sort of a state-based one will just not do so great. That's just my feeling.
Oh, it's good. Yeah. Okay.
So we've actually got some diagnostics now. In fact, I think we've already shot ourselves in the foot because we've demonstrated how easily this was.
We did exactly. Yeah, yeah. No, but just to recap on that, yeah. I mean, you showed in the first session around Azure App Insights. So when you registered that app, you could add in the key for the App Insights. You could get service level telemetry there. So that was things like how long's the bot been running and any kind of response times, I guess, around that. But you were mentioning you could add in other things, so custom.
Yeah, because
insights as
you
well.
know, App Insights is quite an open platform.
Yeah.
There's an API for it, so you can add your own application level telemetry as well. You know,
Which is great, isn't it? I
It's
mean, if you want,
perfect.
because I think you mentioned at the beginning of the first session around it, it's important to understand where your user frustration points are or where the issues are. Well, actually, if you can be logging what your user is typing and logging that into and installing that in App Insights and for later analysis, then that's part of that feedback loop, isn't it?
There's App Insights, and we'll be showing you another way to log it as well
Okay.
a bit later on.
Perfect. Perfect.
But yeah, if you actually look, sort of, we've got a really straightforward. It's you type the key in and the data's there. I mean,
That's not bad, is it? Out of the box.
it's almost sort of okay. What do we say? Apart from, it's just amazing. There you go.
Fantastic. Okay.
So let's talk about actually sort of bot control flow. I still think, why was it called bot? That's another matter. So we've actually got to have some structure to actually how we work with bots. You can do what we saw before, which is just a very simple, you handcraft your code.
Yeah.
And let's be fair, handcrafting of code works.
Yeah.
But the more effort you want to put in, if only there was some control structures built into the bot framework to help us,
that would be nice.
it would be rather handy. But what we have to start with is some very simple JSON, which is the messages. If you're using the .SDK, you actually get structured objects, as you'd expect.
Yeah.
One of the things I'd say here, though, is looking through all of that, you get the conversation ID, you get the user, but what you also get is the type of message.
Okay.
So you've got user messages, you've got system messages.
Okay.
And so system messages are like conversation started, conversation stopped,
Ah,
that
okay.
sort of thing.
So you can react when a user leaves a conversation or starts a conversation or whatever. You can start to do things about. Okay.
And remember the one I said earlier where start the conversation, if you get the start, that's when you want to populate back out the hello, we're a wonderful bot, users, we're great.
So you can use that to launch that welcome experience.
That's right.
Fantastic.
So you get all of the information you need to deliver a great bot, but you have to pay attention and do it.
Okay.
But the messages, what's interesting is they all come from the channel. So effectively the channel's driving your behaviour.
Yeah.
And as long as you respond correctly, you're going to get a great bot.
Okay. I noticed attachments there, so you can pass attachments back.
Yeah. So I mean, we'll see an example of not using an attachment but using a card. So it's not just text that you're transmitting. It can be, you can transmit images, for example. You can also display visual cards, which are quite compelling to use a
In certain scenarios, it's really quite a rich experience.
Really engaging.
Absolutely.
Well, we saw an example where we showed the Sky Centre.
Yeah.
You actually saw
where you showed the place that you were interested in going to, and oh yeah, that's right, and then it showed the buttons. Yeah. Perfect. And then I noticed there as well, you've got the. So it says from, what's that field there where you've got in that case it's SMS, so it's actually the message contains what the channel, the conversation channel.
I mean, this is very channel specific, so obviously from SMS you might have the phone number.
Okay.
You have the channel name as well in there, so you can identify how they're communicating with your bot.
Okay.
But for Skype, for example, you might have some claims, some Skype claims, like maybe the name of the user, for example.
Yeah. And
if you create your own channel, you can inject your own data into there as well.
Okay. That's useful. Okay.
Yeah. So that's a.
So when you actually go back to the emulator, you'll actually see all these messages.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I'd suggest you do is start the conversation and actually spend some time and look at the messages that they flow.
It's a great way to understand that. Yeah.
And you'll see, and when we're starting with the start and the end of the conversation, that's when you start to see the system messages coming in.
Okay. Yeah. Good advice. Okay.
Cool. So dialogues are a conversational process that actually is already baked in.
Yeah, I mean, dialogues are really kind of a simple building block for bots.
Okay.
So you can model you saying something to me and me responding and continuing that conversation. But if I want to continue the conversation, I have to maintain the control flow and the state of what you're saying.
So it's a bit like the Hello World kind of sample you showed earlier. It's like, well, you start with that and you think, okay, that's easy enough. But when you start to get into more complicated conversations, it becomes this kind of bit of a spaghetti to kind of maintain things. So this is helping.
That's a real key point. This kind of helps reduce the amount of plumbing you need to do.
So it's managing that for you, and together with that connector that's managing state and whatever, then actually it's taking a lot of that potential headache away from you, I guess.
It just makes it so easy, and it's perfect for, if BuddyBot, for example, is modelled in dialogues.
Okay.
With form flow initiated by the dialogue, so you can combine the two. It's quite a compelling.
Talking of which.
Oh,
sorry.
Didn't know that was coming.
So we have form flow. So where you had dialogues for sort of simple conversations, form flow actually builds a guided conversation made up of dialogues.
Okay. So it's easier to build out that conversation.
Yeah.
Is it like a layer on top? I mean.
Yeah, it's like it is a layer. That's the best way to think of it, and it's a way of expressing like a business process, if you think of it in those terms.
Okay.
So you need to do these things, and if, let's say, this value is equal to this value, then do this. Otherwise, do this. That kind of behaviour.
So why wouldn't I use that for everything? I mean,
well, you do lose a degree of flexibility with form flows, because you're sort of reliant on the form flow providing a construct for the kind of thing you need to do.
So it doesn't fit everything, but it's a great tool for certain scenarios.
If your process doesn't fit you, then you handcraft it from dialogues. You could say the same from, without dialogues, you're going to handcraft everything.
Yeah.
Dialogues will solve 95 to 98% of what you're going to try and do.
Sure.
And then form flow on top of that will do about the same again.
Okay.
And there's going to be exceptions where they don't work.
Okay.
But most conversations, they've been built to hit most conversation types.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And what I would say,
that's useful.
you can combine the two. So it's not like you're picking one
Right.
over the
You're
other.
not going down one route and going, oh no. Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah.
you've got the ability to bring in the power of dialogues directly if you want to.
Yeah, in fact, I think one of the demos we do has a dialogue that initiates a form flow.
Oh,
so we'll
okay.
get to see this in the next session.
Brilliant. Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool. And technology fails. So what we then have is, we want to have a sort of a brief conversation
Yeah.
on adding intelligence to your bot. Now there's a set of things. These are cognitive services, they all sit in Azure, and they're going to give us a variety of things from language to vision. Now,
So this is like a kind of, I suppose, a layer of REST APIs that sit on top of some of the Azure ML functionality. I think it's about 21 APIs. I think it's about 21.
yeah, under each one of those, I have to say one of my personal favourites actually under language is the translation services.
Okay, so you've got translation there. Okay, well, yes, it makes it very easy to translate between one language and another via REST call.
That's right. So
Awesome.
it might be you say ask your bot,
Yeah.
how do I say this in German?
Yeah.
And then you can give them the sentence, and in fact you could call that through,
Okay.
and then you actually get the response in German.
Fantastic. And then you've got other things, vision. I mean, I know a little bit about that, where it recognises, puts bounding boxes around the faces. I think you can pick out people within. Oh, look, you've got a slide on it as well.
Very.
Look at that. So yeah, but you've got, and then things like emotion detection and sentiment detection, sentiment analysis of text.
And we'll be doing sentiment analysis a
Okay.
bit later on.
Okay.
Certainly when you're talking in a conversation, sentiment analysis is absolute king. Because if you've got somebody getting upset, which we'll show later on,
Yeah.
the fact that you can respond to somebody's emotions and how they feel towards not necessarily the bot but your organisation is going to change how you actually run your business.
Sure. So you've got some examples here of what bots. So
So-
some examples of where bots could be used with cognitive.
That's right.
effectively.
So in the case with speech, we could actually use it for authentication.
Yeah.
So we could actually validate who the person is.
Okay.
Certainly when you're in security environments,
Yeah.
when you go, I would like to do this, at the same time you can actually validate who it is
Yeah.
to stop people just calling. Hopefully your services would have done that anyway, but it's a very useful tool. We can actually, if we've actually got video, we could take video, take the speech out, turn it into text, and then actually put captions on
Okay.
in real time.
Nice.
We've already talked about language intent and sentiment, which we'll give you a demonstration of later. And then knowledge, you've actually got the whole of Bing at your disposal.
So that's what part of the Bing API. So things like I think there's like image search and music search and that kind of stuff. But product recommendations. So what? This is actually where you can bake that into your bots. You can recommend out products based on what you're typing potentially.
And it's we're sort of now delving into whole realms of AI
Yeah.
and how things are going.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the key here is there's not really a limitation on bots.
Yeah.
That's what we're really trying to say.
Yeah.
And we said very early on that one of the key things that's actually happening with bots is the why now, and it's the fact that you've got AI as a commodity service, not just as AI when you talk about things like machine learning,
Yeah.
which is amazing,
Yeah.
but actually pre-built services where you can do things like translation, you can do sentiment analysis, and it's literally you wire them in and they just go.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? I mean, just in the last few years, where these have come from, and I'm really excited where they're going. these.
Well, I mean, let's be fair. 20 years ago, a number of years ago, I'm suddenly feeling a bit old.
You've got that
Yeah.
one in there, didn't you? Oh.
Oh, too long ago. Producing a bot or an agent at the time
Yeah.
with any level of AI was a multi-man,
Massive
multi-year project.
Yeah.
And
Now it's a
it's-
single call.
It is.
Well, it's basically it's two men lounging on a seat while somebody else types in the code, and while we're chatting.
Exactly.
It's a genuinely a wonderful
Yeah,
world.
that's fantastic. So exciting.
So I should do that. So let's have a quick chat about Lewis.
So this is one of those cognitive services
It is.
that we got there. Okay.
And
yeah.
it's a truly important. It's an important one for several different reasons. We'll go through the important pieces in a second. So what we've actually got is a rather wonderful interface to actually understanding natural language.
Okay.
You know,
So I go to what, Lewis.ai, I can log in there, I can register, and I can
Yep.
Yeah,
okay,
in fact, Simon, we'll show you a demo of this
Oh,
so you can
perfect,
actually see
perfect.
it in a bit more clarity.
wonderful. Okay.
Just in terms of what we've got there.
Yep.
but
yep.
again, there's some really key parts about how wonderful Lewis is
Yeah.
and why. And there's some statements I made earlier about what makes a bot good, and one of those is understanding. And if we produce something that the user doesn't expect,
Yeah.
we have app insights for almost failures of code or things not working.
Yeah.
But what happens if we don't understand what the person said?
Yeah.
How do we manage that? And we've got a really interesting case of showing you how to do that in Lewis.
Okay. Wonderful. Yeah, I think that's really, really powerful.
So we need to actually quickly talk you through a couple of really important terminology pieces.
Yep.
The first one is utterance.
Okay.
So an utterance is basically a statement. So I'll say,
Yeah.
I would like to know this. That is my utterance.
Okay. Yeah.
It's an interesting description.
What is the stock price of? Yeah.
That's
okay.
right.
Yeah.
It's plain
yeah.
English, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay.
We then have intent, which is what are we trying to do?
Okay.
What an entity which says what we're trying to do to.
Yeah.
So breaking it, let's take it back to that stock price. So what is the stock price of, let's use Microsoft.
Yeah.
What is that? So,
MSFT.
MSFT. So the intent there is I want to know the stock price and the entity is
MSFT.
MSFT.
Perfect.
Exactly.
Okay, perfect.
And then on top of those, we then build a model which actually has the intended entities. We train the model, and then the model just runs.
Okay. Okay, so actually, so this is basically Azure ML or machine learning that I'm building out this model, I'm training it, and it's a simple, press a button, train, and then
It
off
is
we go.
literally press a button
Okay,
and train.
okay.
And in
okay.
fact, in some cases, it'll actually retrain itself.
Wow. Okay. I look forward to the demo.
Good.
So let's give you a quick example, just a worked example. I think we've already done this. Can we help with some Azure consultancy? That's the lovely Amy at Black Marble.
Yeah.
So
Model,
we
yeah.
throw the statement into the model, and it spits out the intent, interest in consultancy, and the entity is the technology we're interested in as Azure.
Perfect, that's a good diagram, I like that.
And
Yep.
the nice thing there is sort of there's lots of other words in there, but it's actually picking out truly what's going on.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then, if the statement was super pretty please with flowers on top, you'd get exactly the same result.
Okay.
But you
yeah.
probably want a sentiment analysis to say she's being super nice, give her a discount. or
Yes,
something.
exactly,
But
exactly.
we'll cover that in the next segment. So let's actually do a demo.
Okay, over to you, James.
Lovely. Just give me a second to
Yeah,
switch over.
absolutely. So you're going to go to Lewis.ai and show us what's going on in there.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So we'll just get that up and running.
Okay, I'll close the other windows just to
Sure.
avoid confusion.
Okay, so you're going to go to the main Lewis portal, and we're just logging in now.
Yep. So
Okay.
we've been introduced to some of the concepts. So I
Yep.
thought it'd be quite nice if you could actually see this in
Yeah, absolutely.
in practice, just so
Mm.
you can get your head around it.
Mm.
So I've created a model for sales. Basically, the visualization that you saw previously of Amy asking for information about Azure consultancy. We've modelled that in terms of a Lewis set of entities
Okay.
and intent. So if I go into there, we can have a look and see what that looks like. So this is quite a heavily trained model. Now it's, over time we've kind of developed this to recognize different language patterns.
Okay.
So we can, what I want to do is actually show you how we can query it, just so you can understand how it works from
Sure.
a client.
So can you
client
what's on
perspective.
the left there? This first of all. So we've
Okay.
got.
So what we've got here is we've got our intents on the left-hand side, right?
Okay. So this is what the user wants to do, intends to do.
Yeah, so
Okay.
for our scenario, the intents are different types of sales.
Yep.
As Black Marble, we have a number of different services that we offer. Technical leadership is one. Custom development, we will develop a product for you is another one.
Okay.
And then consultancy is another one. So we kind of we have a different sales process for each of those different types of requests, engagements. So we need to be able to recognize which is which.
Okay.
Okay?
So talk me through what none is.
So none is basically if someone comes to us and says, I want a hamburger, for example.
Yeah.
it doesn't mean any sense in terms of our model. So it just defaults to.
So it's your fallback, your default, and you're making sure that you're then dealing with that gracefully.
Exactly.
And we'll cover that in a little while.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll have a look at that in the third session.
Yeah.
But the bot, the way you can kind of implement that in your bot, you have a fallback almost, and you bind to that non-intent.
Okay.
And it then informs the user, well, we don't know anything about making hamburgers.
Sure.
So,
Sure. Instead of just sitting there, not doing
It's important to say that none is baked in from the start.
It is. Yeah.
And whatever you do, you can't get rid of it. I don't think I've ever tried.
I've never tried.
But assume you can't get rid of it, and it isn't because it's important to have, and we'll show you one little
Okay.
while.
Okay. And then you've got one entity here.
So we've got an entity which is technology.
Yep.
Yeah. You can have as many entities as you need.
Okay.
In this example, because we're dealing with sales and technologies, it makes sense
Makes
to have
sense.
technology
Yeah.
as an entity. So
you've built up this.
we've built up this model. We've got 4 intents there, plus the default none. And then we've got a single entity. So I can query this, pretend I'm a user, a consumer of this model.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. I can query this. Oops, wrong one. And I can,
So there's my endpoint.
that's your endpoint,
Yeah.
and that's
Okay.
that's what you get with Lewis. You get an HTTP endpoint that you can query with any client. So
Yep.
if you can use a web client, you can use a C#
So
client.
you can use Lewis in a non-bus application.
Yeah,
You can
yeah.
use it however you like.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the key of this, really, to show you that Lewis is a standalone component. It works really well with bots because it solves a lot of the problems that bots requires.
Well, it more importantly, it changes the bot from being a text response bot to a conversation
That's
bot.
right.
Yeah.
And without you having to put, being blunt, any effort in at all.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
So I can type in a query here. So I am interested in Azure consultancy. And I just press enter. So this is a good tool to.
So this is like just helping you understand what it's looking at. Okay, and this is the response from that?
Yep. So in
Yeah.
the response, you can see the query that we've issued.
Yep.
And then we have a list of intents. The highest rated intent is consultancy,
Yeah.
which has a rating of 0.67, which is 67% confidence,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
So it's also showing me the other intent. So custom development is 0.1. So
Okay.
it could be that, but it's probably not, basically.
So it seems sure, but it's not, convincing 100%.
It's not
So how
100%.
could I change that? I mean,
So the key thing here is language patterns. Okay.
Right, yeah.
So when we've defined this model, we define it with a kind of set of language patterns.
Okay.
Language patterns that I use or someone else uses.
So utterances, effectively, what you were
Utterances.
talking about
Yes.
earlier, utterances, so statements that you were.
Take the utterances,
Yeah.
and what's really nice is when you first start out, you're going to give it about 3 samples. That's
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
happens. But then you can train it by sending lots and lots and lots of examples.
Okay.
And the more often it sees something, the more confidence it gets.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
So it's identified that it's consultancy. Yeah, we've got a fair level of confidence there.
Yeah.
0.67.
Yeah.
But also in this dialogue, you can see it's identified an entity technology there, and it's 0.98 98% certain
Yeah.
that the technology is Azure. So it's extracted that information from that message.
So there's a much higher certainty there around that entity.
Yes.
Yes.
Understanding. Okay, that's good.
So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's really powerful. And
Is there any way I can see what statements I've already used to train
there
this?
is, and that's a really good question. So over time, obviously, you're going to push this out to users.
Yeah.
And the users are going to have different language patterns. Everyone's got a different way of asking the same thing,
Yeah.
effectively. So you need to, in order to make your model more, responsive to different types of users, you need to be able to train it.
Yep.
Okay. So you can download the logs, and that will gather up all the messages that have been sent to Lewis.
Yeah.
And we can basically download that file,
Okay.
and then we can use that to
Right.
feed it back into the model, and we go into this training.
So that's the other way you were talking about when
Yep.
we were talking about the user feedback
Yep.
flow. Actually, that's the other route we could go through. Okay.
So if I just go to the main menu, and I'll show you from here, you can import utterances.
Okay.
So here we've got
So you can start to
sales.
by importing.
And I literally just can upload a file here. I've got some sample utterances. I think I've already trained this, so it should recognize. No, okay, so that's good. So it's found 10 utterances in the file.
Okay.
Discarded one of them because it's the same as something it already knows.
Are you able to show me
Yeah, of
what
course.
it's
Yeah.
seen then? And
Of course.
So
So
in terms
just
of
in terms of what I've
brought
provided.
these in now, hasn't it? And then
So just to set the scene, these are the utterances. So again, it's more variations of English language.
sure, yeah.
We're always kind of asking questions about the sales process,
Yeah.
but we're asking it in different ways.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, if you remember earlier, I said this is one of the key things that bots need to actually be able to evolve over time.
Yeah.
I mean, language evolves in itself, but again, people have different phraseology and that sort of thing. And what Lewis allows you to do is show you all of the utterances that have come in.
Okay.
It will show you what it thinks you meant and how it works.
So that's marked in yellow there for the entity I can see. Yeah.
So
yeah.
there's only one of them that's really quite confident.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what we can do is we can actually go into any of the others and say, actually, these were the entities and how they work.
So you're helping the okay. So can you show
Yeah,
some example?
certainly. So what I've come into here, so apologies, I kind of stepped ahead while you were speaking.
No,
so
that's
I've
fine,
come into
yeah.
the suggest.
Yeah.
And this opens kind of it's almost like a wizard that looks at the data that Lewis has collected in terms of what people are saying to it. And it says, you know, how can I improve the model?
Yeah.
How can I improve the different intents? And it gives you suggestions in terms of, you know, how can I improve, you know, maybe it's not recognizing different technologies.
Yeah.
So I can use this to say, you know, show me all the intents, all the utterances that I can categorize to improve the level of accuracy.
Okay,
So
okay.
I can literally just say, okay, the top one, if you can see this one, the technology there is IoT, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
Internet of Things.
Yeah.
So I can just click on that and I say, it's a technology.
So you can mark that as that entity. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
And if I've got multiple entities, I can say this is a technology, this is maybe a time frame in which we, you know, the customer wants.
And you've got the intent then in the drop down next to it.
Yep.
Is that
That's
correct?
right.
So you're kind of training both sides there, aren't you?
Exactly. So
Yeah,
you're training
yeah,
the intent to understand what you need,
Yeah.
but also to interpret what you're talking about as well.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so it's identified as technical leadership, but actually, no, it's probably more custom development in that instance. Okay, so
Okay.
I can click submit, and that will add to the intelligence of the application.
So I've just gone through and done a load of those. What do I do next to get those live?
You have to then retrain the
A retrain. Okay.
So the bot
okay.
down here,
Sounds complicated.
it's not complicated at all. So the model will automatically retrain at an interval.
Yeah.
But if you want it to retrain instantly, there's a button down here. You literally click it, and it takes about 5 seconds, and then the model's retrained.
which is incredible
Well,
for
it's
the
pretty
training.
impressive, isn't it?
Oh.
So that's now creating a new machine learning model for you, effectively,
In
around
r-
your natural language.
In nearly real time.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then I need to publish that live, I guess.
So yeah, once you're up and running, you just click the publish button. I've already done this one, but
Okay.
there's an
Yeah.
option to update the published application. I can just click that, and that makes it
And that's now
available.
live?
Yeah, people can start consuming it.
So you can now bring that feedback loop in where you're understanding what, if you get user frustration points,
Yeah.
actually you can make the changes, as you said, almost in real time. You can come
Yep.
in, make the change, retrain, republish, and it's live.
Yeah.
There's something also we should say, actually from the front screen, you can actually download the whole model.
Oh, yeah, you can.
And the whole set. So
Okay.
if you're worried about source code control,
Yeah.
you know, I'm not saying developers ever make mistakes, but just imagine they might do.
Mm-hmm.
And you actually say, oh yeah, I fed my cat, and the cat is a technology, and you want to unwind it, you can actually rebuild it and actually take those out later on.
Yes.
Right, okay, okay.
But also the fact, you do want things in source code control. You can download the entire lot, put it in source code control, and rebuild from scratch if you wish to.
Okay.
Absolutely, it's a
Yeah.
really good point,
Yeah.
and thank you
Yeah.
for reminding me, because the model definition we have exported and is available to everyone watching.
Fantastic. Oh,
So-
that's
so
good.
they
So
can
that,
download it.
and that's available what
In
in
GitHub.
the GitHub as well.
In the GitHub repo.
So they can
which,
pick up the model, import it in, press train, press publish, and they've got
Done.
it.
yep, so I'll just
Awesome.
pull that up while we
Yeah.
wrap up.
Okay. Yeah.
So
I mean that's really nice. So they can start to work with that along with the code samples. Then.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So was that at the end of the demo on that one?
Yes, that's the end of the demo.
Okay, okay.
So just to kind of wrap up and set the scene for the next demo, we're going to take what we've done and we're going to apply that to our bot and actually make our bot intelligent.
Yep.
So it can recognize what the user's trying to engage us with. And, recognize things.
And then we're going to follow up and actually do intent, so we actually find out how happy they are and respond appropriately as well.
Okay.
Awesome. Look forward to it. So we're going to take a 15-minute break, just to kind of refresh ourselves, and then we'll be back for that final session on bots, where we'll, we'll cover off kind of applying the Lewis and the natural language processing and the sentiment to it. So see you then.